Hey everyone, it's Jacob again. If this is the first time tuning in, I'm making a series of videos that cover Samoan grammar. Hopefully it helps people to learn Samoan, so whether that's something that's interesting to you because you're going to go visit there, or because you have friends and family that speak Samoan and you'd like to communicate better with them. I've put these together, again, coming from someone who obviously is a native English speaker, that I thought might be helpful, that may be a different angle than what you've been exposed to before. If you've heard it, growing up in the home, being spoken, but just hasn't really clicked. So today's lesson is going to be on possessive pronouns, or not necessarily just possessive pronouns, but how to um, denote possession in Samoan. So a little bit broader than just possessive pronouns like yours and mine. Um, so again, what I try and do with these lessons, I try and give a quick overview of what we're going to cover, and then I go into it, and then I usually try and put some sort of activity at the end to try and cement it. So again, hope this is something that's helpful. I'll link some previous videos down below, or at least maybe the video series. So if this is something you're interested in, you can go access those. But in today's lesson, we're going to cover a concept called alienable versus inalienable, and I'll get into that because I know that's not something that most people are going to know about. We'll talk about using of in order to be able to describe possession in someone, and then we'll talk about possessive pronouns, and then we'll do an activity. So alienable versus inalienable. Basically, when you're describing possession in someone, um, you use different words, just slightly modified, depending on your relationship with the thing. So if something is alienable to you, meaning it's more just like an everyday object. It's nothing that's so important. It's not something that's completely, inseparable from you. Then you're going to use the alienable form of that possessive word. Um, and alienable in this case just means it can be separated from you. If it's something that's inseparable from you, like a family member or your own body part, like your arm, your leg, that kind of thing, then that's considered to be inalienable, and you're going to use the O form, or sorry, the inalienable form of that possessive word, which in this case is O. So as we go through the different ways to describe possession in Samoan, there's going to be an alienable form, which we'll use A, and there's an inalienable form, which we'll use O. Um, so again, that might be a weird concept. Hopefully it'll make sense as we go through and kind of do some examples, but it's more or less foundational. I wouldn't want anyone to be hung up on this completely. You'll learn it as you go, but it's definitely something that is part of the language, and it does make at least a little bit of a difference. For example, if you're going to say my friend, if you use the a form of that, or the a form of that, it's going to mean your regular platonic friend. If you're going to use the o form of that, it might mean your significant other. So, I mean, there are some, differences that will kind of stick out, but a lot of them, if you screw up, you can get away with it. That being said, before we get into possessive pronouns, I'm going to talk about using of to show possession in someone. In English, when we use apostrophe s, that's all we need to do in order to be able to show possession. So if it's Jacob's cup, or if it's Tom's dog, or whatever, we just put apostrophe s after the person or the thing even, and that means the noun or the object that follows that is going to be in possession of the thing I put an apostrophe s on. So in Psalm 1, there is no apostrophe s, so what we have to do is we have to use the word of in order to describe possession. Theoretically, we can do this in English, we just don't do it very often because it sounds kind of fancy and formal. But in Psalm 1, that's really our option when we're talking about that. So there are probably silly examples here. But for example, in Psalm 1, we would say, Oletusi a Jacopo, which is the book of Jacob. We can't say Jacob's book. We have to basically put a noun phrase together. And again, I'll link to other videos so you can look up what noun phrases means. But that's how we have to do it in Psalm 1. And you'll notice that the a in that sentence, Oletusi a Jacopo, is the word for of, And we're using a instead of o because the book is just the thing. It's definitely an alienable possession of, in this case, Jacopo. Jacopo is the Samoan word for Jacob. The next example I've got there is Olemaile a Sally. Olemaile a Sally. So this is the dog of Sally. In English, we would never say the dog of Sally. We would say Sally's dog. But again, we can't say Sally's dog, so we've got to use of to show possessions. Next on down is Oleuso o Simi. Oleuso o Simi. And this is the brother of Simi. Again, we're using o in this case because that's a familial close relationship. It's inalienable. It's Simi's brother. The next one will be Olelima Osina. Olelima Osina. This translates to the arm of Sina. Lima is arm. Obviously, Sina is the person who owns that arm. Again, in English, we would just say Sina's arm. Here we have to use ofs. So the arm of Sina, Olelima Osina. All right, so hopefully that made sense. Again, if not, leave a comment below, and I will definitely look to try and answer. So the next way we show possession in Samoan, and again, if you can't see these slides, I've got links to the slides. You can download them. I recommend that you do that to make notes or follow along or whatever. So the next way that we show possession in Samoan is through possessive pronouns. We do this in English too. My is a possessive pronoun in English. Yours is a possessive pronoun. Theirs is a possessive pronoun. In Samoan, and you can go back to the pronoun lesson that I had. A pronoun tells us a lot in Samoan, and a possessive pronoun tells us even more in Samoan than it does in English. So you can see below basically there's a formula. So again, I would recommend that you look at the descriptive and emphatic pronouns lessons or videos that I've got available. But in short, we've got a formula of just 3 components to every possessive pronoun. The first component is going to take the place of an article, which is the equivalent in English of saying the or a or and. Those are articles. And that really tells us whether the thing we're describing is definite or indefinite or plural or singular. The next component is going to be the a or the o, and that tells us the relationship of the thing that's being possessed, so whether it's alienable or inalienable. And then the third component is basically going to be a proxy for the pronoun. So for the singular pronouns, we have some specific words, which I'll go over in the table below. And then once we get to dual or plural people that are owning something, we can pretty much just drop in the descriptive pronoun for the most part. So the table I've got below, if you've seen previous videos, it'll look familiar because it looks just like the pronoun tables that we've gone over before. So on the left-hand side, I've got the perspective, so whether it be first person, second person, or third person. And again, in Samoan versus English, first person is differentiated by being inclusive of the person being spoken to or exclusive of the person being spoken to. And then we've got the count of the people that we're talking about going across the top. So whether it's 1 person, 2 people, or 3 or more people. So what I've actually written in this table is really just assuming that we're using the definite singular article with this possessive pronoun, but you could just as easily swap that out. If you look at the note that I've got below, you could swap that out to be the indefinite article, or you could have that be just the definite plural or the indefinite plural. So basically you'd have to take this table and do 3 more of them. So there's 4 total to really encompass all of the different possessive pronouns there are in Samoan. It's way better to just memorize the pattern than it is to memorize all the different possessive pronouns. So again, that formula that I've got up top, if you can get that down packed, you're going to be just fine. I'm doing this table more or less to kind of show how that pattern really works. So I'll go across the singular column at first. So for a singular possessive pronoun, so in Samoan, in English, this would be the equivalent of just saying my. For first person is lau or lo. Lau obviously is for alienable. Lo is for inalienable. That doesn't differ at all when you go to first person exclusive. Second person, it's lau and lo, lau and lo. So English equivalent being your. Third person would be lana and lona. Now again, I could switch the L for S's, so I could say sau, so, or sau and so, or sana and sona. I could drop the L and put a ni in front of there. I could put niau, nio, niau, nio, and niana and niona. So it really just depends on um, the nature of the noun that I'm describing. Again, I really recommend that you look at the video I had on articles and noun phrases, as well as the one I had around pronouns, because this will all kind of make sense if you do that. Otherwise, this seems like a lot to digest. So going to the dual column, I'll say la ta, lo ta, la ma, lo ma, la lua, lo lua, la, and lo la. And then finally on the plural column, la tato, lo tato, lo mato, la mato and lo mato, la oto, lo oto, la lato, and lo lato. So again, I think it'll make more sense as we actually do some examples. So the activity that I thought would probably help someone cement this, you can kind of do it on your own, but it's obviously better if you have someone to kind of practice with, is doing some question and answer. So in Samoan, when you want to ask, do you have something? What it literally translates to is, does your something, so let's take, I don't know, ball, does your ball exist, is how you'd actually ask that question. And because it's a question and you don't know if it really exists or not, you're going to be using the indefinite form of that possessive pronoun. So you're going to be using like the S possessive pronouns. And then when you respond, you can say yes, my whatever exists, my ball exists, or my dog exists. So that's kind of how it literally translates to in Samoan. Obviously, the real translation in English would be, hey, do you have a dog? And then you would say, yes, I have a dog. So to kind of show you what that looks like, I've got two examples. The first one is Eyaisau ta'avale, Eyaisau ta'avale, which translates to, does your car exist? Do you have a car? Notice that we're using the alienable form of the possessive pronoun with a, and we're using the indefinite article form of that possessive pronoun by using s's instead of the l. When you answer, if the answer is yes, then you can respond by saying, in English you'd say, yes, I have a car. It literally translates to, yes, my car exists. So in that case, you're not gonna be using the S form of that pronoun anymore. You're gonna be using the L form of that pronoun because it's definite. It's just like in English how we say, do you have a car? And you answer yes. Well, I guess that doesn't make sense. In English, you'd say, yes, I have a car. But because it's actually, you know exactly what it is, it's a blue Ford, Taurus or whatever, you can use the definite form of that article. So again, in Samoan, the question is, e iai sau ta'avale? And the answer would be, in this case, ioi, e iai lau ta'avale. The second example I've got there is about a house. And in this case, you're asking two people whether they have a house. So think about like, you meet a couple, and you're just chatting them up or whatever. You might say, e iai sa lua fale, e iai sa lua fale. Do you have a house? And then in this case, they don't have a house. And so they say, leai. E leiai sama fale. E leiai sama fale. So again, you'll have to go back to previous videos, but we can negate a verb in Samoan by putting le in front of it. So in this case, when you say it does not exist, you say e leiai sama fale. You're actually answering with the indefinite article again, because your house doesn't exist. So it wouldn't make any sense to use the L form of that possessive pronoun. So hopefully that makes sense. And so what I have down below are some just vocab that you can put into the formulas that we've discussed here. So ideally what you'd want to do is practice by using different forms of the possessive pronouns. So whether you're talking to 3 or more people, whether you're talking to 2 people, whether you're talking about other people, you'd want to switch in and out of those pronouns. So for example, if you wanted to ask whether that family over there, so in other words, 3 or more people, has a telephone, you would say, Ei sala to telefoni. Ei sala to telefoni. And then, you guys can make up the answer. Yes, they have one, or no, they don't. If it's yes, you'd say, Yoi. Ei la to telefoni. Yes, they do have a telephone. Their telephone does exist. Or you might say, Leai. Eliai salato telefoni. Eliai salato telefoni. No, they don't have a telephone. Their telephone doesn't exist. So that's kind of how the back and forth would go. Again, this might sound complicated, but again, if you look at those previous videos, it all comes together. If you have someone speaking family or friends, this is something maybe you can kind of go back and forth with them, and I think it'll click because it's more of a pattern than a memorization thing, and then you'll start to actually hear it when you converse back and forth. Anyway, that kind of concludes what I've got. I guess maybe what I'll do real quickly is just kind of go over the pronunciation of these vocab words if you haven't heard them before. So starting from the left, busa, busa is a box. Telefoni, telefoni is telephone. That one's a pretty easy one. Ta'alonga, ta'alonga is a game. Esi, esi is papaya, or I guess they call it pawpaw fruit, depending on where you're at. Lole, lole is like a candy or a sweet. Tupe, tupe is money. Ainga, ainga is the Samoan word for family. Me'ai, me'ai is food, and tusi is book. So if you have other vocab that you want to look up, again, go to Google Translate. I'll put a link below that has some, vocab on it. But put the words in that you want to know about, or if you don't know that word and you've got someone you're practicing with, just use the English word and try and use everything else in Samoan. Chances are it'll totally work. But the idea is to practice and to actually use it. Otherwise, this stuff seems really academic and it's hard to get a hold of. So hopefully that makes sense. If this is something that's helpful to you guys, please like the video. Tell me in the comments. Let me know what is helpful. Appreciate it. All right. Bye.